It's Tuesday, September 20. In the headlines, gun amnesty coming soon. Regionally in Barbados, inquiry into the government-run juvenile institution. And in sports, highlights from the Cricket Premier League. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The government will be implementing a gun amnesty soon. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement recently at a passing out parade ceremony for the new constables of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. He says the decision to establish a gun amnesty for a short period coincides with the passage of the new Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act 2022. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the new Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act 2022 is aimed at providing greater prohibition, restriction and regulation of firearms, their parts, components and ammunition and connected matters.
Every Jamaican, be aware, be forewarned. The penalties have increased significantly.
He says the gun amnesty is being planned out of a sense of fairness.
Immediately there are those who will scoff at the amnesty. Which bad man is going to go give up them gun? Well, really, I don't want you to give it up. I want to catch you with it. So don't give it up. But out of fairness and equity, out of enough forewarning, so that you can't come in front of the judge and say, Your Honor, I did not know. We will implement a period of amnesty.
The gun amnesty will allow persons who may be in possession of illegal firearms the opportunity to surrender these weapons to the state without fear of prosecution. Mr. Holness says the specifics of the amnesty are being left up to the Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Jang, and members of Parliament. He furthers that while the government is responsible for creating laws to curtail crime, it should be seen as a public health problem.
As a family problem, as an education problem, as a social problem, and therefore the entire society has to be mobilized to treat with this public health issue. No cash, no problem. You can use the Bank of Jamaica's central bank digital currency, popularly called Jamdex. You can access and use Jamdex through Link, a digital wallet that persons can use locally, and the CEO of Link, Jamaica's latest digital wallet provider, Vernon James, says the list of merchants utilizing the technology is growing. He was a guest on the latest episode of PBCJ Presents.
You can go to an ABM and you can withdraw your funds. So you can go from Jamdex to physical cash through Link. You can go from physical cash to Jamdex through Link. You can pay another merchant with Jamdex, a small merchant. And I would say in the next couple of months, you'll be able to go to many of the large merchants and be able to pay with Jamdex. That's what we are working on.
The National Commercial Bank, NCB, has facilitated the provision of the sole digital wallet introduced so far.
But what I can say, and this is one of the real benefits of Jamdex, is that once we have other wallet providers and banks on, then you can transfer your Jamdex between one wallet to another. 24/7, very easily. So it's a way to transfer money that is an improvement as to how you do it now. Now you do it through, if you want to go from NCB to Scotia, for example, you do it through RTGS or you do it through ACH. When other banks come on board, you can transfer between Link and another wallet 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
You can add your debit or credit card to the wallet, and from there you can move funds from those instruments into the wallet. He says you don't have to have a bank account to use Jamdex.
What you find is that a good portion of Jamaican society has been locked out of financial services because they don't have bank accounts.
True.
Through Jamdex and Link, you can open an account. You only need a valid ID. You can open an account and immediately you can start to do your business. So we're unlocking financial services for the whole country, but in particular those who haven't been able to avail themselves of the digital services before.
The aim right now is not to transform society into a cashless system, but according to the Bank of Jamaica's Deputy Governor, Mrs. Natalie Haynes, the plan is to give Jamaicans safe options.
Digital currencies to give people another option in terms of their means of payment. So you either choose physical currency or CBDC, or CBDC is called Jamdex. The cost of cash is high, not just for Bank of Jamaica, but for the commercial banks in terms of storage fees, courier costs, the time it takes to order banknotes from overseas, have it printed and shipped to Jamaica. That's about a 9 months lag. So all that resource, we think it was best in terms of digital currency, and also the government of Jamaica is on its path for digital transformation.
Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, is urging school administrators to follow the interim guidelines for beverages in schools. The guidelines serve to reduce students' exposure and consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, including fruit drinks, energy drinks, and sweetened water. Effective January 1, 2019, the guidelines prohibited sugar-sweetened beverages with a total sugar concentration exceeding a maximum of 6 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters from being sold or served in schools. This was reduced to a maximum of 5 grams per 100 milliliter, effective January 1, 2020, and to a maximum of 4 grams per 100 milliliters, effective January 1, 2021. Come January 2023, the limit will move to a maximum of 2.5 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters. The objective is to improve the dietary intake of children and also to reduce the burden of non-communicable diseases, which account for 78% of deaths in Jamaica each year. Evidence shows a strong link between sugar-sweetened beverage consumption and childhood obesity and the development of NCDs in later years, which requires an urgent response. Plans are being put in place to use mined-out bauxite lands to plant castor beans and intercrop these with cash crops. Member of Parliament for the constituency of St. Elizabeth Northwest, J.C. Hutchinson, says farmers in the area are preparing for the move.
The beans will be processed to extract castor oil, which is $1 billion industry. Its use in cosmetics alone is valued at $187 million per year.
He was making his contribution to the 2022-2023 constituency debate in the last sitting of the House of Representatives. Mr. Hutchinson, who is also Minister of State in the Ministry of Transport and Mining, said while St. Elizabeth Northwest is outside the bauxite mining belt, the area has many farmers who are already cultivating castor beans.
They are looking to partner with the JBI in this venture. We see this project as a game changer for these farmers in the constituency.
Funds have been allocated to carry out repairs on the toll gate to Grange Hill and Grange Hill to Glasgow roads in Western Westmoreland. Member of Parliament for the area Moreland Wilson reassured constituents that the roads would be improved while speaking in the 2022-2023 State of the Constituency debate in the House of Representatives recently.
I want to say to this Honourable House that these roads have been in disrepair for many years, some dating back 30 years. Madam Speaker, the Jackass River Bridge, which connects Westmoreland to Hanover in Friendship Division, collapsed in August 2022. As a result, several farmers have been unable to access their farms or transport their produce to market. Madam Speaker, I would like to inform this Honourable House and my constituents that funds have been allocated to repair the toll gate to Grangeville and Grangeville to Glasgow roadways. And the thoroughfare from Tollgate to Glasgow as well as from Solas to Grand Street is scheduled to be rehabilitated. Thanks to the partnership with the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Minister Warmington, for making this possible.
The Scientific Research Council, SRC, is now accepting applications and nominations for this year's Young Scientist and Technologist Award. Interested persons are required to send an email to innovate@srcjamaica.org to access and submit applications and nominations before September 30. Applicants and nominees must be 40 years old or younger, have a terminal graduate degree, be actively engaged in research that aids the country's development, a Jamaican citizen or non-national residing in the country for a minimum of 10 years, and involved in research that is relevant to Jamaica's development. The Young Scientist and Technologist Award is one of the initiatives developed and administered by the SRC to fulfill its mandate of promoting science and technology as drivers for development. Short-listed candidates will present their work at the SRC's 7th Biennial Conference on Science and Technology that is scheduled for November 15 to 17. The winner will be announced on November 17 during the National Innovation Awards. In addition to the coveted trophy, the winner will walk away with a cash prize and join a powerful global network of influencers in science and technology. Time now for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
On Thursday, Statin reported that inflation ticked up by 0.9% from July to August and 10.2% from a year ago. The July to August inflation was the biggest jump in prices since a 1.6% hike in March and the second largest single-month spike in prices since a year ago. According to Statin, higher food prices were the cause of high inflation in August, and although at least one food producer of chicken meat cut prices last month, and food producers petitioned their colleagues to pass on lower costs to consumers, higher prices for primary agricultural products such as Irish potato, carrot, onion, and pumpkin have pushed inflation. Increasing too were prices of flour, bread, and other meat products. For your market updates, in foreign exchange trading for Monday, September 19, the US dollar sold for an average of $152.69. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $114.91. The pound sterling traded for $173.82, and the euro sold for an average of $153.62. In GSE trading, the GSE index advanced by 727 points. The junior market index declined by 10 points. The combined market index advanced by 587 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 1,243 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 109 stocks, of which 46 advanced, 50 declined, and 13 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, CAC 2000 9.5% cumulative redeemable preference shares, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU deferred share. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 4 million units, MFS Capital Partners Limited and iCreate Limited ordinary shares with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the only active security posting a volume of 120 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was the volume leader with 800 shares. They were followed by Epley Caribbean Property Fund, Value Fund, which traded 200 shares. In regional business, the Barbados-based Rubis West Indies Limited is threatening to sever ties with its employees in Dominica after claiming that it is being forced to subsidize its local market for petroleum products. Speaking on the state-owned DBC radio, country manager Nicholas Dodds said they were being forced to subsidize the market based on the pricing system from the Ministry of Trade, and as such, they are losing money. In market data for oil prices ticked up as OPEC and its allies keep producing less than their quotas, but were headed for a fourth monthly decline ahead of an expected further U.S. interest rate hike, which may curb economic growth and fuel demand. Brent crude futures were up 41 cents to $92.41 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude was at $85.82 a barrel, up 9 cents. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, in Barbados, instances of physical abuse, unqualified staff, and a need for relocation are among the key findings of the departmental inquiry into the Government Industrial School GIS. The inquiry was done following public calls for the closure of the state-run juvenile detention center. A report of the findings and accompanying recommendations were revealed by Chair of the Inquiry, Oral Williams, during a press conference on Monday at the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Corporal punishment, although provision is made for it in the old legislation, the document produced by Lucia does, and the ministry has said no more corporal punishment. But there was at least 1 or 2 instances where there was abuse, physical abuse, to residents by members of staff.
I'm hesitant to give times. I would tell you certainly before the end of the year, right? And I would like to be in a position to tell you a lot shorter than that, but that is one of the #1 priorities of this government at this point in time, to be able to create that legislative framework, have it dealt with, done with, so we can get rid of the charge of wandering. That's a principle 1 for us. So we can put things in place to identify at-risk youth and keep them out of the system, that we can provide the care for our young people and provide the facilities recommended to facilitate that care and to promote behavioral change in behavioral practices, right? And not simply seek to figure out what to do with them once they've been arrested and charged.
The St. Lucia Teachers Union has addressed circumstances it describes as posing serious implications for the St. Lucian education system. Controversy over the grooming guidelines within one institution and legal challenge posed within the courts has dominated public discussion in recent weeks. In a September 19th statement, the organization examined the impact of rule-breaking in society.
The statement issued by the SLTU comes in the wake of a recent challenge raised to St. Mary's College rules requiring that students' hair not be, quote, more than 1 centimeter long or high, end quote. In recent weeks, the matter transitioned into a legal battle initiated by the father of one student, with an injunction later granted allowing the boy in question to return to the classroom. One legal challenge hoped to inspire change to school policy remains before the courts. The St. Lucia Teachers Union is directed by an executive instated for the biennium April 2022 to March 2024. At the helm is SLTU President Don Howell, who also serves as head administrator or principal at the institution at the center of the organization's investigation, the St. Mary's College. In a statement issued by the organization, the SLTU General Secretary, Chantal Peter, outlined the role of institutions of instruction in molding national students.
The St. Lucia Teachers Union has been investigating the issue at St. Mary's College and is very disturbed about this case as it has serious implications for the entire education system. Schools are institutions that instill values and discipline in students to help them to become law-abiding citizens. Given the nature of school, we all understand the importance of rules and regulations and the reasons why they should be followed. Further, the SLTU is concerned about the impact that this matter will have on school discipline. If a student is allowed to break one rule, then inevitably, the authority of all other rules will be compromised.
According to the SLTU statement, adherence to rules is critical to the national school system.
The stability of the entire education system would be at stake. Therefore, all school rules should be given the utmost respect in the same manner the rules and regulations in all other institutions are respected. The SLTU is therefore calling on parents, the Ministry of Education, and the wider community to work with our schools to protect the integrity of the school system and to allow school to continue to play its part in developing law-abiding citizens of this country.
The issue of grooming guidelines and the potential for revision of national policy recently prompted dialogue between education officials and one local coalition, Hairs Out. According to a September 16th post by Hairs Out, the Ministry of Education is to undertake a review of current rules of grooming in schools, quote, with a view to addressing the current issue from a more holistic standpoint, end quote. Members of the coalition, while seeking dialogue, have continued to highlight the difference between advocacy for change and inciting rule breaking.
Public sector unions in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have finally come to an agreement with the government regarding a salary increase. The SVG Teachers Union President Oswald Robinson told SVG TV News at the recent march and protest that the unions have agreed to a wage hike for the next 3 years.
We decided with the government that we would take a 3-year salary increase. 2023, 2024, 2025. The economy is now rebounding, so we should have a 5% growth this year. So by next year, everything should be much more favorable. We have not decided on figures yet because we are still in conversation with the government. So we will go back and we will pin down, even though we had proposed a 10% over 2 years. Now that we have decided it's a 3-year, then it's expected that we may revisit the 10%. We also decided that we're going to raise the tax threshold because, when you make $20,000 a year, that's the time you start to be taxed. So we want to move up that, say, probably around 22,000 thereabout. And then we know that people need a relief from that. The other thing is that we want to look at the higher income bracket and to reduce the personal income tax. There we are, here we are, and we are fighting to defend democracy in the country. People have a right to choose under the Constitution, and we are going to march today and also tomorrow.
A Grenadian entrepreneur has collaborated with global experts to empower underserved teens. Here's more in this report.
More than 400 teenagers worldwide recently participated in an empowerment workshop. This workshop aimed to empower underprivileged teenagers. Kinta Pear, a Grenadian and founder of Bespoke Lifestyle and Legacy, has partnered with a group of entrepreneurs across the United States, Europe, and the Caribbean in a 2-hour-long workshop. This empowerment workshop was delivered to Grenadian teens between the ages 14 to 18 years old. Some of the areas covered thus far include how to access their inner power and learn vital life skills, personal development, spiritual development, and emotional intelligence. It is hoped that this will aid in boosting their confidence as future leaders and to become more adaptive and strive towards their careers. As a group, these female global leaders believe that true transformation happens at the level of the mind, and being poor does not mean being powerless. To change a person's self-concept is to allow them to see a new possibility and a new world. Our collective vision is to create a more abundant world, filled with prosperous, love-filled, happy people. Empowered to Prosper was founded by Hannah Fitz, a St. Lucia national who was named Success Magazine's 2022 125 leaders who who get results and is a member of the Forbes Business Council. Facilitator Kinta Pear has shared the international stage with legendary Dr. Les Brown and has been traveling the world for empowerment purposes.
In international news, Puerto Rico is still reeling from the impact of Hurricane Fiona. Residents of Puerto Rico are still in the dark as rain continues to fall and some roads are blocked due to downed trees and mudslides. President Joe Biden has declared a state of emergency for the U.S. territory.
A sign of an island hit again. This bridge, built after the last hurricane to hit Puerto Rico, washed away. 2 days before the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Maria, now Fiona. Maria was a Category 4, Fiona a 1. But the devastation appears to be just as widespread.
This is the Plata River from the bridge in Camarillo. It is approximately 10 feet from hitting the bridge. This is crazy.
The governor of Puerto Rico has called the damage catastrophic.
In many areas that had never seen flooding, there has been an unprecedented accumulation of water. In fact, in many areas it was greater than what we saw during Hurricane Maria.
Up to 76 centimeters of rain was forecasted to fall on some parts of Puerto Rico. Houses, businesses washed away. Landslides are continuing, and more than 1.3 million people are without electricity and will likely stay that way for days or weeks. Many also don't have access to clean water.
At my age, I've never seen anything like this before. I have no words to describe this.
It destroyed everything. Everything has been affected. It all has to be rebuilt. All this.
More than 1,000 people had to be rescued. And now Fiona has moved on to the Dominican Republic. The damage there also widespread as Fiona brought winds of more than 140 kilometers per hour.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't sleep. I was sitting behind that door because the wind was strong enough that it would have taken me with everything. I woke up at 4 a.m. because the house was one large pool.
Fiona is expected to strengthen in the coming days as it next bears down on the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, and likely Bermuda as well.
In sports, the St. Lucia Kings made it 3 wins on the trot in the Hero Caribbean Premier League with a thrilling 1-run victory over the Trinbago Knight Riders. Here's more from TTT News.
The Knight Riders won the toss and opted to field first, and that decision appeared to have backfired when Johnson Charles's half-century got the Kings off to a lightning start. Although the Knights pegged the Kings back in the middle overs, a devastating 33 of 14 balls from David Visa ensured the Knight Riders were set a very difficult target in 148 to win. The Knight Riders' task became even more challenging when they lost 3 early wickets inside the power play. They never really recovered from that and left themselves too much ground to make up in the back end, resulting in the narrow defeat, finishing on 146 for the loss of 6 wickets.
And that's the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom Gale. You can follow us on our social media pages at PBCJamaica.